Right, let's see. Are we live? Yes, we are live. All right, that's interesting considering the fact that every time I try to go live, it usually doesn't work right away. So it looks like there's no one watching live right now. But if there are, definitely start asking me your questions and I will answer them live. So I suppose I will copy and I will share this to my Facebook momentarily. Anybody who's watching me live right now, go ahead and ask your questions and I'll answer them right here, right now, because we are fucking live, you guys. We are live. All right, I'm going to share this. Post your questions down in the chat so I can answer them. Post your questions, you guys, while I paste this to my Facebook feed. Let's see. Ask your questions, ask your questions. Come on, guys, ask me your questions. Let's go. All right, so I suppose I'll just start talking about what's on my mind while you all kind of loosen up a little bit and start asking me your questions. So let's see. All right, so I just finished up watching Ip Man, the fourth movie, because I've seen all the other Ip Mans or whatever. I've seen Ip Man 1, 2, and 3. And this one was advertising Bruce Lee and everything really heavily. And it's funny considering the fact that there really wasn't much Bruce Lee going on. There was like one fight where Bruce Lee fought like a karate guy or whatever, and it was pretty badass. But the majority of it was Ip Man, you know, doing Chinese kung fu, fighting off some bullshit. Okay, I'm getting messages and shit on Facebook. God dang it, you guys. Ask me your questions because I don't really want to talk about Ip Man right now. Lately, I've been drinking Cruz Del Monte Yerba Mate, and I find that Cruz Del Monte Yerba Mate tends to give me kind of like a burnt out, high feeling euphoria, whereas traditional Yerba Mate, certain other brands tend to have varying effects. I find, especially like the green yerba mate, the unroasted kind, tends to make me feel a lot more clean energy rather than the burnt effects that I get from some of the roasted yerba mates. But not all roasted mates make me feel that way. But I definitely notice there's varying yerba mates. So that's on my mind. What else is on my mind? Let's see, what else is on my mind? The fact that Chinese Kung Fu, it's funny how all these traditional martial artists, they're always talking about MMA and kickboxing and how there's all this ego in MMA and kickboxing. Because if you've ever been to an MMA gym or you've been to a jiu-jitsu gym or any of these, like, I guess you can say modern martial arts schools or whatever, most of the people there are not egotistical. They're not not in the least bit. And if you beat them in sparring, because we spar pretty much every single day to some extent, they're not going to hold it against you. It's not going to hurt their ego. And if it does, then typically those people don't last very long. But I actually did Shaolin Kung Fu for like 3 years, like maybe 4. And I also did karate for about 2 to 4 years. And I actually noticed there's a lot more ego in the traditional martial arts circles compared to the modern, MMA and stuff like that. Most of those like pretty much all of those traditional martial arts masters, at least the ones that I have been taught by, which not taking anything away from them, they're all great people. They all think that their philosophy is like the best, or they talk down on everyone else. And you see a lot of this, especially like on YouTube. Like there's this guy named Freddy's Modern Kung Fu on YouTube, and that guy has some really like racist comments and a lot of discrimination and bigotry and hatred. And there's all these clips of him slapping around these like fat kids and stuff on YouTube. It's not even funny. It's actually very sad. And that guy's clearly mentally deranged. But you see a lot of stuff like, maybe not to that extreme, but a lot of stuff similar to that in the traditional martial arts world. And as far as like, you know, MMA and jiu-jitsu and stuff is concerned, typically, I mean, of course, there's going to be ego in all martial arts, but, you know, it's really not the norm. Whereas when I go to like, I've gone to like karate tournaments and stuff like that, and you get a lot of nice people there, but everyone has this like attitude, like they take themselves way too seriously. And pretty much when you go to jiu-jitsu tournaments and MMA fights and stuff like that, the only people who really have a serious demeanor on their faces are usually the people who are fighting that night. So, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot to talk about in regards to ego and martial arts. And it's funny how the people who speak the most about like removing the ego and like leaving your ego at the door and stuff like that, they're typically the ones who have the biggest egos of all. And usually you find that it's martial arts that don't spar on a regular basis and don't actually test themselves. Places like Aikido and even like Krav Maga, which is largely fitness-based now. It's not even really a legit martial art, at least the way it's being taught in a lot of these schools, because I have friends that teach it. But yeah, so ask me some questions, because if I don't start getting questions here in the next couple of minutes, I'm probably going to call it a night, because I've had a really long weekend, and I don't know. Typically, I'm answering questions for 3 hours straight when I do these. Man, I'm getting all these questions and stuff on Facebook out of everything. People are funny with their stuff. All right, guys, ask me your questions in the comments. Let's go. Yeah, usually I have a lot more to say when people aren't talking, but I don't know. It's weird. You know, I've been making videos on YouTube since 2008. I used to make skateboarding videos back in the day. I started making health and nutrition and health science and really philosophy videos back around 2013, around the time when I started to look into my own like chronic health problems. It's really fascinating looking back at my journey and how much my knowledge has expanded since I started, because back in like 2014, back in 2013, like when I first started all this, I was terribly lost. Like, I remember, for one, it's very easy when you don't know anything about a subject to get bamboozled into things like, you know, like in the health world, we have raw veganism and we have these parasite cleanses and all this crap. And, you know, it's super easy to buy into that stuff and then go down a rabbit hole that you never crawl out of. And for me, I actually was in that rabbit hole for more so like a year. It didn't take me that long to crawl out of it. But I think the worst rabbit hole that I crawled down was like when I first started my health and nutrition journey. You know, I used to buy into the nonsense that Muller J says, "Hello, you are looking healthy, man." Thanks, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I feel healthy. I feel healthier now than I've ever felt in my life. Let's see. Ryan Ace asks, what test should I have taken before starting testosterone replacement therapy? I'm not sure if I could fix it naturally. It's really low. So Ryan, have you started taking testosterone replacement therapy yet? So I'm not really an expert in hormone replacement therapy. It's not something that I've dived too deeply in as far as like, pharmaceutical grade testosterone. But I know a lot of people that have dabbled in that, including some of my family. Oh, you haven't started yet. Okay. So first of all, what test should you get? So it sounds to me like you've already gotten a free testosterone and a total testosterone test, because that's why you think it's low, right? So you should get a testosterone test. You've gotten a testosterone test, right? I'm pretty sure you have. So a free T, and you need total T. Okay, so what was your testosterone levels when you got them tested, Ryan? What range were they in exactly? So I mean the main ones are, 100? Yeah, that's low. Yeah, that's low. So if I'm remembering correctly, and we're using the same metrics, then your testosterone is 200 to 300 points below the minimum range of healthy, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty, it's pretty low. So for how old are you, Ryan? So I mean, there's a variety of things that can cause low testosterone. And if you've already gotten your free T and your total T tested, I mean, you can get your estrogen and your estradiol tested. You can get your estrogen byproducts tested. I mean, let's see, sex hormone binding globulin. What else is there? Follicle stimulating hormone. I mean, there's a variety of levels to check on a hormone panel that are relevant to testosterone. But I think the main things are estrogen, estradiol, free T, total T, and from there, those are good if you're looking to maybe get on, testosterone replacement therapy or something. Oh, you're 42, drink a lot of alcohol, you smoke. Okay. And so have you been working out? Have you been exercising, Ryan? Skinny but slight belly. So it sounds to me like you might have mild insulin resistance, which can only be caught doing a fasting insulin test rather than a hemoglobin A1C. Okay, so here's the thing. You can do miraculous things by starting a real time-tested heavy strength training program, number one, including some high-intensity interval training, 2 to 3 times a week. But you don't want to overdo it. Okay, that's number two. The third thing is eating a diet that's based on animal protein and is low to moderate in carbs, but high in fat. Now, here's the thing about testosterone, okay? So if you have visceral fat, which is what you're talking about having a little bit of fat, a slight belly, you're skinny fat. So that means you have visceral fat. And that's usually a sign of insulin resistance. Again, so insulin resistance is usually only tested by a fasting insulin test. So here's the thing, is if you have insulin resistance, you must reverse that, because that alone can contribute towards hormonal imbalances of all kinds, especially in women. The second thing is, if you have body fat, you need to reduce that. But the third thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and it's very common, I'm starting to see now in some of these more extreme diets of all kinds, when you start doing intermittent fasting, when you start to do low carb, and these are things that I'm a fan of, okay, but I understand the risks. Here's the thing, chronic caloric restriction of all kinds, okay, no matter what type of diet you follow. Don't listen to these people who say low carb ruins, it takes your testosterone, it raises cortisol. That's not true, unless you're not eating enough calories. It's not the low carbs that usually cause low testosterone or the fasting. It's chronic caloric restriction. Because what happens is when you start to restrict your calories in the long term, it is a well-documented fact that you start to develop something similar to what is known as overtraining syndrome. And it's not really overtraining, it's that you're not giving your body the nutrients and the calories that it needs to recover. Now, this does not apply to you if you're overweight or, you know, if you've only been doing carnivore for like a month and intermittent fasting for a month. If you have not been doing intermittent fasting and carnivore for longer than like 3 months, this doesn't apply to you. But for some people who are doing, you know, diets, they're accidentally restricting calories way too low, okay, through intermittent fasting and low carb, because people don't get hungry when they're restricting carbs and they're doing fasting. It starts to change your hunger hormones in a way that makes you less hungry, which is why it's so effective. One of the main reasons. But for people with low testosterone, if you're not giving your body enough calories, okay, you're going to get adaptive thermogenesis. So a lot of times you'll see lower thyroid hormone. You'll see lower thyroid hormone, and you'll start to see lower testosterone in men. And there was a carnivore dieter, his name was Carnivore Kurt, so Andrew Todd says, Wolfgang, have you tried microdosing shrooms? No, I have not. Any thoughts? My thoughts on microdosing shrooms is, why would you want to do that? Maybe once in your life, do that and experience it. But if you are constantly doing it, maybe for the purpose of spiritual awakening, for me personally, I feel like that's missing the point. And I don't think a shroom experience is the same thing. So there's that. Now, Ryan, back to the testosterone thing. So if you want to improve your testosterone naturally, that's going to require an individual assessment of many factors. It's going to require you sit down with somebody who's knowledgeable on the subject and they ask you questions. And it's sad that a lot of people get scammed on this, but, and just so you know, I do offer consultations for $20 per hour. I do them through Skype or through phone, whatever is best for you, or through Facebook or Instagram, the video messenger. But yeah, so here's the thing. Again, it depends on what you've been doing. If you've been chronically underweight for a long time, then you need to eat more calories. If you've been chronically overweight for a long time, then you need to start to lose that weight through, you know, carnivore and intermittent fasting and stuff like that. So anyway, strength training, eating enough saturated fat, eating enough protein, 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, okay, from animal foods. And, you know, just building muscle and being more physically active over time, that can definitely balance out your testosterone. And you can work with a doctor every 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, every 6 weeks, get a testosterone panel to see if it's working. But the thing is, yeah, you probably should take me up on a consult, because it's going to depend on yourself. It's going to depend on your individual needs. And when I do consults with people, I don't care as much about money. That's mostly just because I need, you know, because my time, really, I don't really have a lot of time these days, but I really want to get to the bottom of people's problems. And yeah, like zinc and boron and iodine, like those are important, but they're not necessarily going to reverse a low testosterone situation. Like there's some very common and obvious factors in people's lifestyle that tend to cause low testosterone. Now, Ryan, I want you to understand that I personally am not opposed to getting hormone replacement therapy as you get older, but I also believe that until you're like 60, there are natural things that you can do to reverse your testosterone issues. And that's mostly, and that's mostly going to be, you know, building muscle and doing heavy enough weight, like a 5x5, like starting strength if you haven't lifted before, get the book Starting Strength, start the program, look at the form corrections and stuff like that, and then progress to something like 531, or Forever 531 is even better. You want to include a lot of volume in your training, and you want to include some type of cardio training. But the key is to lift heavy and to progressively overload your body over time. Put your body under stress on a regular basis so it can adapt and get stronger. Now, as far as shrooms are concerned, if I remember correctly, there were some mechanisms in increasing prolactin, possibly, through some of its influences on serotonin. Now, don't quote me on this, but if you are, microdosing shrooms is different than taking shrooms for a trip, mind you, but there's a possibility that microdosing shrooms or taking a lot of these things. A lot of these things can influence your and can influence your hormones in negative ways. And I'm not saying that they do, I'm saying that they can. You got to be careful with a lot of these things, including supplements that you take. One more thing, and I'll get back to this testosterone thing a little bit later, but I want to answer some of these other questions here, is that there actually are mushrooms that I've taken, like reishi mushroom, which is not, it's not the same as like taking shrooms, but a lot of these medicinal mushrooms also tend to antagonize anabolic hormones to an extent. So cordyceps is an exception to that, but let me start to answer some of the rest of these questions. I'll get back to it. Let's see. Yeah, so my thoughts on shrooms. Oh, so microdosing shrooms is not too bad. Microdosing shrooms is not too bad. But taking shrooms to trip out, I'm not really a fan of. Microdosing shrooms can have a lot of great effects, such as reducing stress, increasing your social acuity, and your desire to socialize. It can resolve a lot of stress issues, PTSD, and stuff like that. So I've seen a lot of great science and a lot of great evidence, and especially anecdotal claims revolving around microdosing shrooms. But for one, I believe shrooms are illegal, in which case, for me personally, I avoid anything illegal, regardless of the regardless of the justifications and the benefits. And there probably will be exceptions in the future, because I can usually find legal things that do something similar, especially in regards to natural medicine. But let's see. So, yeah, so no porn is always good. And I think there's more benefits than just regulating libido. Like, because libido will die if you watch porn on a regular basis. And I can go into the science behind that. I can talk all night long about why pornography ruins your sex drive and your motivation and your zest for life. Let's see. Muller J asks, do you still take Gingko Biloba for anything? So currently I'm not taking Gingko Biloba, but I was taking Gingko Biloba throughout June alongside my Mucuna supplementation. The thing about, so Gingko Biloba, what I like about Gingko Biloba is that it tends to increase the sensitivity of dopamine. And what that means is, so dopamine, so anything that influences dopamine, that can mean, obviously pornography, regular sex with a real woman, hopefully, or a real person. What else? Video games, reading books, being motivated, drinking caffeine, eating food. Even polyphenols can stimulate dopamine receptors to a certain extent in a healthy, natural way. And Gingko Biloba increases your sensitivity to these things. So when I take Gingko Biloba, I can feel more euphoria from dopamine stimulating activities. Not that dopamine stimulates euphoria, but the act of doing things that work with those reward pathways tend to result in euphoria secondary to dopamine. It's not dopamine causing that. And Gingko Biloba is also amazing for increasing your circulation. So I find it to be a great nootropic, a great dopamine regulating herb, and good for the cardiovascular system in general. and for increasing your breathing, especially if you have anxiety and stuff like that. I feel like Ginkgo biloba is like a subtle undercover anxiety reliever, because people, when they think about anxiety, they think too much about like their thoughts and the brain and stuff like that. And even they think too much about dopamine. Not to say that that's not important, because it is vitally important. But a lot of what they need to think about is your breathing being, compromised? Do you have compromised breathing patterns? Like, that's a huge cause of anxiety. And then that can cause all the mental fuss and things as well. Let's see. Jad97 asks, wait a second. Where was I? Jad97. Hey, bro, do you have any recommendations for books that teach you about how nutrition works regarding all these hormones you're talking about? Like something that actually explains how your body works, how it uses what you eat, and etc. Okay, so great question, Jad. So I've been asked this question on a regular basis a lot of the time, and I read a lot of books, you guys, a lot of books. And unfortunately, I've been looking for a book that I can recommend my clients, that can summarize all the basic fundamentals of everything you need to know, or at least scratching the surface. I'm gonna tell you, number one, the closest thing you're going to get is going to be a textbook on physiology. Okay, so there's a nutrition textbook that I recommend would be Understanding Nutrition, because it discusses digestion, everything from the mouth down to, coming out your anus. It discusses water. It discusses pH balance to a certain extent. It discusses minerals. It discusses how foods are digested, and it discusses the functions and the science behind different vitamins and minerals. And the thing is, there are a lot of wrong information. There's a lot of wrong information in all books, especially textbooks. But the main thing about textbooks, about this one in particular, Understanding Nutrition, you buy it used on Amazon for like $9. And I have a whole bunch of textbooks in my closet. That's how I learned everything. And I read science, and I read people's anecdotes, and I tie it back into what I read from the science and textbooks. I use a combination of huge amounts of people's experiences that I read online, and peer-reviewed articles, peer-reviewed studies, intervention trials, cohort studies, and the basic mechanistic data you learn from textbooks. So where I'm getting with this is that a lot of the problems people suffer from can be solved by just understanding how the body actually works on a basic fundamental level that you'll learn from introductory textbooks like that one. And most people on YouTube are charlatans, and they're charlatans in a way that they don't actually read basic fundamental physiology, like people like Frank Tufano and a lot of these raw vegans too. And they come up with these crazy things like meat rots in your intestines, parasites are causing your anxiety or something. And if you read basic physiology and basic nutrition textbooks, you'll find a lot of things that can be contributing to most of these problems you might be dealing with. And you'll also see that how meat is digested in the stomach, and you'll realize it's impossible for it to rot in your colon. And you can read the references and the studies to see the facts and the actual evidence. And then when you hear people who spew bullshit, you'll already be armed with the basic understanding of how things work. And so, yeah, I mean, there's not really going to be a whole lot of things that you can read that are going to give you everything you need to know. But textbooks are the closest thing to that, but a lot of them are wrong. Okay. For example, in nutrition textbooks, a lot of them will still say they'll overgeneralize polyunsaturated fats as being healthy a lot of times, or just unsaturated fats. And they might say that saturated fats, or they might suggest saturated fats contribute to heart disease. They might suggest that like LDL cholesterol is plays a causal role in heart disease, which it doesn't. They might be missing like the inflammation's role in heart disease. So they might be missing, like vitamin K2 might not even be mentioned in a nutrition textbook. They might only mention K1, okay? But other than that, that's the closest thing you're going to get. So a lot of the books that you read are going to be expert opinion. Things like Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Paul Saladino, Dr. Mark Hyman, and these are all things that I've read, and a lot of them have great ideas, but expert opinion should not be taken as facts. So there's like an atlas to the human body that discusses hormones, discusses the skeletal system, the muscle system, the digestive system, the liver, and how all of those things work in synergy. And that's a good book to read. And there's not really too much misinformation in that book because it's mostly based on organs that, and how they work based on autopsies and some very rigorous testing, which is very hard to get rigorous testing. So let's see. And I can always come back to that, you guys. So if you want to hear more on any of the things I mentioned, go ahead and ask me. And keep in mind, I'm also offering consultations if you guys are interested. Message me on Instagram or email me at wolfganglozana@gmail.com. And no problem, Ryan. I love answering you guys' questions. Let's see. Andrew Todd says, absolutely on the prolactin and side effects of all these substances. Lion's mane is heavily anti-androgenic and makes me feel weak as hell. Yeah, lion's mane I've heard has an anti-libido effect, which is interesting. And reishi for a lot of people does as well. Now, I've heard mixed results from some of these things, but from if we're basing our opinion entirely on the science and what the intervention trials and mechanistic data says, reishi mushroom in particular has what is it? Is it 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, or is it it inhibits what is it? Well, it has anti-androgenic effects. It inhibits the DHT, and I think that might be from inhibiting 5-alpha reductase. But I've been studying so many other things lately that right now I can't really pick up a lot on the reishi. But yeah, you got to be careful with a lot of these things, and things like ashwagandha and rhodiola, for example. It all depends on what type of extract you're taking, what brand, what dose you're taking, and then also the totality of your diet. Because again, I made a video earlier about how basically a lot of alternative medicine practitioners, they try to persuade people into taking all these supplements and things for all these things like testosterone, what would you say, for like anxiety, for irritable bowel syndrome, for parasite cleansing, for all these things. And it's important to understand in regards to testosterone, in regards to mental health and all these things, the first thing you need is to get your diet on check. And you'll know you have it on check when you feel like 20 years younger, or when you feel healthier than you've ever felt in your life. You can feel when you're going in a positive direction. And after you get that taken care of, because a lot of times, especially in regards to severe health problems, diet is not going to solve everything, but it'll solve most things. And testosterone, for example, it requires exercise, and it requires targeted caloric intake and targeted nutrition, like targeted macro intake. If you're not eating enough fat and calories on a low carb diet, for example, especially combined with intermittent fasting, you will start to see your hormones tank. Or you can start to see your hormones tank. There's different camps. Some people believe that your body becomes more efficient with the calories and protein that it has, but I've seen too many people post like testosterone labs after any kind of like long-term caloric restriction, and when they start to add calories back in, no matter what it is, if it's fat on a low carb diet or if it's just carbs on a regular diet, their hormones go back up. They might gain fat in particular on higher carb diets, but at least they have their dick working again, right? But in regards to libido, you know, that's a tricky thing. And pornography is a huge factor involved in libido. I used to have erectile dysfunction. Like, I used to get laid all the time, but I used to watch porn like 20 times a day back when I was younger. And so whenever I would have sex, I'd have these beautiful women, you know, and girls that I had crushes on for a long time. And we had this long-term like crush thing going back and forth. And we finally got to be in the same room, and the girl came over specifically to sleep with me. And my dick couldn't get hard. It was horrible because there was like 2 years of buildup, you know? It's like having your high school crush and you guys flirt back and forth, but nothing ever happens. And then one day she just randomly like messages you, and she comes over and dick doesn't work. And this was back when I was drinking tons of Monster and masturbating excessively. And I'll tell you, eating a healthy diet alone is not going to solve the huge strain that pornography and excessive ejaculation has on the dopamine system and your brain, and just you become overstimulated in general with excessive novelty. So watching this live stream is great because it's a constant stream of focus. Whereas, you know, scrolling through Facebook, for example, it trains your brain to, for one, you're on autopilot. Your brain you're no longer thinking. The scrolling is doing the thinking for you. That's the first thing. The second thing is it puts your brain in its hypnotism, where you're not focusing on any one thing in particular. You're not focusing on me talking, right? You're focusing on your brain's just like, oh, like a cat video. Oh, like this girl has her tits out. Oh, like, you know, my aunt posted a meme about Donald Trump. And like, you see 20 completely different things within a span of 1 minute when you scroll through Facebook. And it trains your brain to become mush, basically. And that's horrible for motivation, for focus, for social skills, and for your libido. And I found that this actually tends to trigger pornography relapses. I've been able to be mostly porn-free as long as I stay off scrolling and surfing. And there's something called no surf. If you really want to remove porn from your life, no surf is a huge one. So let's see. Wispiff says, raw meat is fucking tasty. Yeah, I mean, I've eaten raw meat as a normal part of my diet through, you know, like varying times. I haven't really eaten much raw meat besides raw fish. Raw fish and raw eggs are a huge one that I'll eat on a regular basis, especially this year. 2019, I had eaten raw steaks, especially if I'm getting chuck or something that's like tough. And I have noticed it is harder for me to chew it. It takes a lot longer. But even getting your steak blue, like I know a lot of people probably think I'm crazy for this, and maybe I shouldn't announce this on the live stream, but I did go to my favorite Chinese buffets immediately after when the lockdown was lifted. And the main reason why I did that is because I have fond memories there. It's where I used to always take my friends, and I would take clients sometimes, some of my best clients, though, that I taught all my secrets to. And we would go to Chinese buffets and celebrate there, and I'd be drinking my tea. I'd be eating my sushi, my raw sushi, and I'd usually get raw steaks and stuff too. Not raw, completely raw from a Chinese restaurant, guys, but they would sear it, you know, for like, I don't know, 20 seconds on each side, make sure they don't get any oil and stuff like that. And I'd eat it blue. Number one, because they usually use cheap cuts of meat, so it's easier to chew if it's slightly seared but raw on the inside. Number two, if they only sear it for 20 seconds on each side and they don't use it extra oil, then a lot of the leftover oil from the grill doesn't get soaked into the meat. And so I actually went to my favorite Chinese buffet to support them, because during the quarantine and the shutdown and stuff, they were barely hanging on. Buffets, no one wants to go to buffets during like this pandemic because people have this really weird phobia of bacteria and pathogens. People don't understand there's MRSA, staph, all sorts of bacteria and viruses floating around in your environment all the time. It only penetrates you when your immune system is low or if you have cuts and things like that. Just because you go to a buffet doesn't mean like, oh, like, you know, I might accidentally contract bacteria if bacteria somehow got in my food. No, bacteria is always on your food. So anyway, people are scared of my Chinese buffets, and I don't want to see them shut down. And I love Chinese buffets, and the whole fucking shutdown, the whole time, I was telling my friends, as soon as I'm able to, I'm going to go back to Chinese buffets. So I did go to a Chinese buffet like twice, and I got raw steak at one of them because they have all-you-can-eat steak. And this buffet in particular was like, they lowered the price, and they're one of the most popular buffets in my city, and they're always packed. And so I ate probably 3 pounds of steak for like $10 that day. And a lot of it, I just, whatever he had on the grill at the time, I took. If it was blue, if it was well done, I didn't care. Anyway, yeah, raw meat, it's good stuff. If you guys want me to elaborate on the pros and cons of eating raw meat, I will talk about it, but I'm definitely not like a raw food diet guy. I'm not like Spirit or anything. Let's see here. Let me answer some more questions, you guys. I'm getting behind. All right. Let's see. Whoa, I got a lot of questions I need to get back to. Let me answer some of the newer ones here. Oh, wow, you guys. Let's see. My one worry with things like eating raw meat is the accessibility of good quality, clean meat for the general population. So first of all, I've eaten supermarket meat raw for years, and I have not seen any problems. I've eaten conventional eggs raw for years and haven't had any problems. Now, ideally, if you're eating any kind of egg, you want the flax-fed omega-3 egg, in my opinion, because they're certified to have a healthy fatty acid composition. I have a lot of friends that will eat nothing but pasture-raised eggs. But the thing is, those pasture-raised eggs might not be getting the omega-3 you think from the grass. It depends on what they're putting on the pasture. So as far as eating like clean meat and stuff is concerned, I don't think there's much of a risk as people think. Yeah, you know something? Human beings have been eating rotten meat for years. You guys need to read the book Nourishing Diets by Sally Fullen, because it summarizes a lot of Weston Price's research in an easy to read way for the layperson who's not big on science and details. And it talks about how like the native Indians, for example, they actually used to kill a bison, and they'd have a bison colon eating contest, and they'd actually eat the shit out of bison. Now, I'm not recommending you all do that, but next time you eat kimchi or fermented vegetables, keep in mind the original fermented vegetable for human consumption was eating the fermented vegetables out of herbivorous animals' colons, okay? And that's a testament to some of the, the stomach acid capacity that we have as humans. Now, and I'm not recommending you do that, okay? I'm not telling, like, there's not really any, like, no one needs to eat raw meat, okay? Let me put that out. No one needs to eat raw meat. If you eat raw meat, you're purely doing that because you think that there's more enzymes or more, or there's healthy bacteria, or there's more nutrition because you're not cooking it out. And factually speaking, there's going to be less potentially carcinogenic compounds, ones that I'm not really worried about, things like heterocyclic amines and polycyclic hydrocarbons and things like that, or aromatic hydrocarbons. But yeah, there's no real reason for you guys to like eat raw meat. But if you're worried about eating, like, for me, admittedly, I eat H-E-B's meat raw, where I'm at. H-E-B's like a grocery store, and I forget, it's conventionally raised as far as I know, but it is local. It's from local farms. So maybe that is a reason why I never got sick from it. I think that our fear of bacteria and viruses and even parasites might be overstated. Now, parasites and viruses, and parasites especially, are a very real thing, and there's something you should worry about. But I think the general population is way too worried, especially when you think about, like all these like other countries in the United States, everything from Europeans to the Asian countries, especially, and even like South American countries and Central America, and even Mexico, which is technically North America, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. If I am, that's embarrassing. But they eat like cockroaches, they eat bull testicles, they eat like frogs. And, America is a very weird and disconnected country. Like, we're the most disconnected from our human tendencies. Human beings have survived on blood and guts. We've survived on rotten meat. We used to scavenge carcasses from other carnivorous animals, the best evidence suggests. That's how we started to eat meat millions of years ago. And the main thing here is that we have the stomach pH somewhere around the same stomach pH of vultures and hyenas. A healthy human's going to have, and don't quote me on this, but it's something like a pH of 1 to 2.5, if I'm not mistaken, which is highly acidic. Our stomach acid is supposed to break down the vast majority of pathogens that enter our stomach, but most people in our society are sick. They can't handle real foods in general, let alone raw meat, right? And just the thought of eating raw meat for most people, whether they're healthy or not, makes them sick already. But yeah, you guys don't have to eat raw meat if you don't have to. Just make sure when you cook your meat that you eat the juices, because potassium and magnesium is actually adequate. You can find adequate amounts of potassium and magnesium if you eat adequate amounts of protein from animal flesh. So if you, for example, I weigh about 185 pounds right now, give or take. My lean mass is about 165 pounds, I believe. And so I need 165 grams of protein, give or take, in the optimal range. If I eat 165 grams of protein per day from from red meat, okay, from ground beef, I'm going to get, so that's 2 pounds of red meat. Per 1 pound of red meat, you get about 1,000 milligrams of potassium and about 150 milligrams of magnesium. If I eat my lean body mass worth of protein from ground red beef, like red meat, then I'm going to be getting 2 grams of potassium and about 300 milligrams of magnesium per day if I eat the drippings, okay? So that's the main benefit, is if you don't cook it, you don't have to worry about the potassium and magnesium. But if you do cook it, as long as you eat the drippings, you'll be fine. So let me see. I'm going to try to answer some. Hey, guys, answer any questions down in the comments that I haven't answered yet. The Running Man asks, do you eat liver from the supermarket? Do I eat liver from the supermarket? I do. I eat calf liver. It's in the frozen section. My local grocery store. So I can get grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic liver. It's double the price, but I can get it frozen, but it's shipped across the world. I can get calf liver. That's frozen, but it's probably fresher. It's probably more nutrient dense than any kind of organic grass-fed beef liver. Beef liver is from an adult cow, and typically those are cows that have been fattened for the market and they've been fed grains. I get calf liver. I get frozen calf liver because I'm pretty sure the calf liver is going to have been fed mostly grass because it's from a calf. It's going to be less fattier. It tastes better. Like, it doesn't have that metallic taste that you get from like a grown cow. And generally speaking, when I do eat liver, I will eat 4 ounces a day on average. And I've gone times where I would eat a pound of liver a day. Now, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it gives benefits, but I don't think it gives harm either. Most of the toxicity associated with liver was from polar bear liver, which had, like 100 times the vitamin A content of like beef liver. So let's see here. Joseph Reyes asks, thoughts on Moringa and Yerba Mate? So Moringa is an interesting herb. I actually have a ton of Moringa powder that I bought from my local Indian market sitting in my cupboard. The reason why I don't take Moringa is because I've seen evidence that it can boost estrogen and lower testosterone. And I believe it's actually used to increase milk production in lactating females. But at the same time, it's highly nourishing. And I've seen some manufacturers claim that there's actually plant-based B12 in it. I don't know how accurate that is, but it seems to contain a large amount of vitamins and minerals from lab analysis done on the raw plant material. But what you got to understand about green leafy plants is they typically contain a lot of oxalates and other anti-nutrients, and the actual amount of nutrients you might be absorbing from that moringa might not be as much as you see on the label. So you might see you're getting 100% of your daily intake of vitamin A and B vitamins and magnesium, but when you eat that plant, you might only be getting 25% of all of that. So Moringa is not really something I'm a huge fan of, but I was interested in it at a certain point. Yerba Mate. So Yerba Mate, on the other hand, I just drank a shit ton of Yerba Mate before I made this live stream. I love Yerba Mate. It's one of my favorite herbs. I believe that it works as like a daily tonic, similar to coffee, and it might possibly work as an adaptogen. I believe that it has benefits for improving the immune system, for improving your cognition, your mental clarity. It has anti-stress benefits, I believe. It does have a large amount of saponins, which is one thing that things like ginseng and eleuthero are known for. And it's one of the reasons why people take a lot of adaptogens in general. There's a lot of similarities between Yerba Mate and many adaptogens. Now, it does contain caffeine. Okay, a lot of people claim it contains something called matane, which is not actually caffeine. And they claim that because Yerba Mate affects people in a way that is calming, like green tea, stimulating like and energizing like coffee, but euphoric like chocolate. And so they think there's not actually caffeine in it. But scientifically speaking, there is caffeine in Yerba Mate. It's just that it also contains a whole host of other compounds, different xanthine compounds. Xanthine is a class of stimulant compounds that caffeine comes from. Alkaloids like theobromine and caffeine come from that same class. And there's a variety of different ones that typically are responsible for the different stimulating effects of many caffeinated beverages. So if you ever notice, if you take 100 milligrams of caffeine from loose leaf green tea, 100 milligrams of caffeine from coffee, ground coffee, and 100 milligrams of caffeine from loose leaf yerba mate, you're going to see a significantly different effect from each of those plants, just independent of the caffeine content. And the reason is because of the different levels of polyphenols, phytochemicals, the mineral content, amino acids play a big role. Like in chocolate, there's a derivative, I believe, of phenylalanine. It's PEA, and that actually induces an oxytocin, which is a love chemical, and makes you feel euphoria, makes you feel kind of like you had an orgasm. And so despite the fact that chocolate has caffeine, like raw chocolate has caffeine in it, you're not going to feel the same as if you take a caffeine supplement or down a cup of coffee. So yerba mate is amazing. Let's see here. Jad97 asks, what do you think about supplements? I have heard such a mix of ideas regarding what supplements are good to take alongside a healthy diet. So I have videos about supplements and I have mixed opinions on them. What I will tell you is, number one, you need to eat a diet that is good for your own constitution. And let me remind everybody, I do accept inquiries for health consultations. So definitely hit me up if you're interested in maybe figuring out if you have food intolerances and individualizing a diet based on those types of factors. But Yeah, it's context dependent. So ideally, if you eat enough animal protein for your body weight, okay, you will be getting all the vitamins and minerals that your body needs to survive for years, and you will be able to be healthy at the same time. So as far as vitamin and minerals are concerned, for me personally, I strongly, strongly believe, and I can explain the ins and outs as to why I believe this, the science behind it, the anecdotes, everything. As long as you eat enough animal flesh, you're going to be getting enough of all vitamins and minerals except for things like B1, folate, and vitamin C. And those are things that we can discuss further. After that, you can actually consume fruits, and you can get plenty of B1, vitamin C, and folate from fruits. You can get B1 and folate from liver, eggs. Vitamin C is mostly found in plant foods, and there's a tiny bit found in things like spleen. So with that being said, if you have your diet on check, and I mean it actually proper, you won't need supplements. And you'll find most vegans, they take a lot of supplements beyond just B12 and vitamin D because they don't feel good, and they're trying to figure out why they don't feel good. Vegan Gains, he's been doing all sorts of B12 shots and things for a long time. And so point here though is I'm not recommending people eat a meat-based diet. What I am saying is if you eat enough animal protein, you're probably not going to need to supplement. However, I will say depending on, there is the fact that, soils might be depleted in certain nutrients, but most people don't really seem to be affected by that. But some people might need to supplement with magnesium, for example. For sleep, relaxation, and bowel movements. And there's a lot of benefits from using magnesium, not necessarily to supplement a deficiency, but more so as a remedy for a lot of problems people face, things like Epsom salt baths, stuff like that. But as far as like supplements to take alongside a healthy diet, you shouldn't need any of them. I spent this entire month just trying to get a baseline with no supplements to see how I feel and to see how certain foods affect me. So you don't need supplements, but I think tonic herbs are great. And I think if you can tolerate them, there's certain like whole food powders that can fill up a lot of nutrients you might not be getting from the foundational part of your diet, which in my opinion should be red meat. But I think a diet that consists of red meat, fruits and vegetables, but mostly fruits, and then maybe, some liver here and there, you'll be getting all the nutrients you need, especially if you add eggs and you add seafood for the iodine and selenium. Well, mainly iodine. Let's see. Andrew says, I would say humans would drink their own piss. Yeah, I don't think anyone should be drinking their own piss. Like there's like raw vegans and dry fasting people who do that. If you're drinking your own piss, you're probably orthorexic is what I'm going to say. Now I am open-minded to the possibility that there might be some kind of like therapeutic application to that, but I don't think that, I'm pretty sure there's other things going on. Most people that are driven to drink their own piss, people like Tim Sheaf and whatnot, they're doing that because their diet was not adequate. Tim Sheaf was on like a 30-day dry fast when he did that. People that do these dry fasts tend to already have a degree of orthorexia, and it just makes it worse. And I believe drinking piss is a symptom of that. Let's see. So again, you guys, ask me any questions down in the comments that I haven't answered already, and I will continue to answer them. And I'm going to try to stay up to date on these questions. I'm going to try to like scroll down and answer some of the newest ones. But if I missed your question, repost it for me, okay? Let me see here. Jad asks, is there a list that you could perhaps think of that are helpful in general? Let me see. Is there a list that you could perhaps think of what are helpful in general? where there may be benefits and there may be any dangers in taking the supplements. Yeah, I mean, so magnesium is great for sleep, anxiety, and also for improving bowel movements in the morning. Particular, I think magnesium citrate is good. It's really helped me out when I was dealing with panic attacks and anxiety back in the day, until I figured out, my mindset and nutrition that was actually causing my anxiety. And when I changed my mindset, my nutrition, my anxiety went away. All the panic attacks went away. I talked about that in pretty much every live stream I've ever done. So magnesium's good, relaxing you, bowel movements. What else? I like Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine. It seems to boost energy, boost your cognition and stuff like that. Theanine, I found, if you get a good brand, which is, I've noticed a lot of these bulk powders are hard to get quality supplements. Theanine is really good for decreasing anxiety, increasing focus, increasing, your feeling of presence and being in the moment. And I found that it really helped when I went to jiu-jitsu. I felt like I was rolling in the matrix. It was really awesome. And if you guys want to know more about supplements, because I'm like a walking encyclopedia of different supplements, tell me specific types of supplements that you guys are interested in. Like there's libido supplements, energy supplements, sleep supplements, which I'm just going to tell you how to actually fall asleep without supplements probably, but I'll mention some herbs too. But vitamins and minerals, I mean, you really shouldn't be supplementing with too many vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D3, taken in doses about 5,000 IUs a day. I think that there's plenty of evidence to suggest it's protective of heart disease, especially if you have a deficiency. Now, the key though is making sure you get enough vitamin A, which I recommend getting from liver. But if you're eating enough organ meats, fish, and eggs and animal products in your diet, you can actually reach 2,000 IUs a day of vitamin D really easily. But most people don't eat enough vitamin D or don't eat enough animal products. Like, it's pretty crazy. Let's see here. Melatonin. Yeah, I'm not a fan of melatonin. Most people don't know what melatonin actually is for. So melatonin it's not supposed to be used to induce sleep. It's not like taking passion flower or taking chamomile tea. It's not like to induce relaxation or sleep. Melatonin is a hormone that regulates your sleep habits. If you take melatonin, and you only need a tiny dose, guys, if you take too much, you're going to actually see worse effects. Some people actually experience insomnia when they take too much, but just a little bit. Like I think the dose was like 500 micrograms or something. You take just a tiny bit of melatonin every day at the same time that you want to fall asleep every night. So if you want to fall asleep at 10 p.m. every night, you take it at that time every night consistently. And I think 3 days is enough. And then every single day you need to go into that bed, put a sleep mask on, and over time your body will start to naturally fall asleep at that time. But melatonin is not going to work if you take it at random times because you're trying to use it to help you fall asleep rather than to regulate your sleep habits. Or, if you take melatonin at the right time, but you have your lights on or you're on your cell phone or something like that, melatonin is not really going to help. And so, I made a whole video about how I cured my lifelong insomnia. And I had insomnia bad. I would go weeks without fucking sleeping. And a lot of that has to do with medications I took as a kid. But most people, they say they tried everything and blah, blah, blah. But number one, they're trying too hard to get to sleep. And number two, they're not, the one thing they're not trying is usually sleeping in a cold room, putting a sleep mask on, having blackout blinds, reducing noise, using white noise in the back. Jad says he feels like I'd enjoy a Lebanese diet. Yeah, I'm not really into a lot of these exotic foods and stuff that I mentioned. only the ones I say that I've eaten, right? Like I've had grasshoppers or whatever, crickets before, and they taste kind of like nuts or something, like seeds or something, like crunchy. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it. Jad says, basically, I've been eating like you are saying, but with a little more carbs, which I try to cut out through things like bread. But I feel like a little bit of rice is not so bad as long as you are moving. Okay, so I made a video on the hierarchy of carbohydrates, and I recommend you check that out. Bread is obviously, there's no reason to eat bread. I made a video about white rice, for example, and like if you want to eat it, that's fine. But I don't see any purpose in eating white rice other than if you are in a severely depleted state, not of glycogen. Glycogen is a stupid reason to eat carbs at all because your body doesn't just magically stop producing glycogen when you go low carb. But if you, for example, I've talked to, like, there's people out there who are on extreme caloric deficient diets where they're restricting calories for weight loss for a long time. And then they do see a decrease in their thyroid hormone and they feel like garbage. And they experience clinical adrenal insufficiency syndrome, like what people call adrenal fatigue. And the way to combat that is to increase your caloric intake by a lot. And your appetite will go down if, and that's a thing. So in order to remedy that, white rice, like jasmine rice, is important. The one thing you don't want to eat is white rice that's been fortified with iron because you get iron overload or iron toxicity, and that's very bad. And I think a lot of Americans are actually suffering from too many isolated vitamins and minerals from fortified foods. Too much supplemental iron, which can cause like permanent organ damage. Like cereals, we're given these fortified candy is what cereals are, when we're children, and it's marketed towards them. And it's like sugar with added vitamins and minerals. And I think the iron in those cereals are causing serious harm, especially to men, because we don't have periods and we don't bleed out the iron. Like that's a serious problem. And a lot of people, for some reason, are dumbfounded on that. It's weird. But Jad97, you say you've been eating like I've been saying, but if we're talking about if you're not feeling your best or you're not getting the health results that you want, we've got to get into the specifics of your diet so that we can figure out what's actually going on there. Because I don't believe that a vitamin or mineral supplement, I think some minerals might help in some cases, but vitamins generally are not necessary. It's typically the overall totality of the diet. And in regards to eating carbs, if you are eating low carb, but you're eating a little bit of rice, then, you could be, there's a lot of things that have to be discussed in regards to carbs versus fats and low carb territory. Because if you're eating low carb and you're not eating enough fat, then you will start to experience problems, and it has nothing to do with vitamins. It has everything to do with energy availability and what fuel is your body using. So anyway, all right, I'm going to continue asking questions. You got answering questions here. Let's see. Gamer X says, I'm 17, 35 kilograms. I don't feel hungry at all. 35 kilos. That's light. I don't feel hungry at all. I have a bad immune system. I tried almost everything. What should I do? Gamer X, you say you're 35 kilos, but you're not giving me a height. Are you a man, or are you a male or a female? And how much, how tall are you? Okay. 35 kilos sounds really low, but if you're a female and you're only 4 feet, that's different. But bad immunity could be caused by undernourishment. And if you don't feel hungry at all and you're malnourished, you don't feel hungry because, again, just like I just mentioned with the rice thing, when people are chronically undereating, that lowers their appetite, it lowers their thyroid hormones, and you start to feel horrible because you're not eating enough food. But because you're not eating enough food, your metabolism slows down and you're not hungry anymore. And so you have to start eating whatever food you can to get your caloric intake up. Because your body, when it doesn't have enough caloric energy, it senses a starvation. Like, this is actually real in regards to severe caloric restriction. Make no mistake. You will induce a situation where your body's like, I don't have any energy to survive and I need to conserve energy. So it drops thyroid hormone, because thyroid regulates energy expenditure, how much energy your body is consuming. And if you're not eating enough food, your body has to consume its own body fat, which is why caloric restriction works. And it also has to consume your own muscle tissue once it's out of body fat, which is how gluconeogenesis turns protein into energy, only in starvation. And so it doesn't want to consume its heart muscle and its brain and stuff. So it slows down its metabolism, and part of that is also slowing down hunger. So eating processed carbs can help somebody who has this adaptive thermogenic effect, okay, who has no appetite but they're chronically malnourished. You need to start to eat more food so that you can get your body to tell itself, hey, like, I'm getting food now, so I don't have to suppress my metabolism anymore. I don't have to suppress my thyroid. Let's see. Yeah, so some funny troll comments. Funny. You made me laugh, but like, okay. Jad97 says, it's crazy when it comes to mental health and physical health. They're so interconnected. I agree with you on that one, and we can come back to that later on. But I definitely agree with you on that. And it's unfortunate so many people, including psychiatrists, can't see that. Firstly, Free asks, have you heard of Garcinia Cambogia? It's good for losing weight. Okay. So as far as I know, Garcinia Cambogia, interestingly enough, when it first getting popular, which was around, I don't even remember exactly, it was like maybe 2014-ish, maybe before then, one of my doctors actually asked me about it because he knew I was into nutrition research. And the thing is, the research around that, which I haven't been following up on since it was originally kind of like really popular. Basically, Garcinia Cambogia, the main mechanism behind its weight loss benefits is actually by increasing serotonin. And when you have increased serotonin, you'll have less dopamine, because serotonin directly antagonizes dopamine. And dopamine is a go-getter neurotransmitter. It makes you chase food and chase things. But that's not it. Serotonin actually has direct appetite suppressant effects. And so that's actually the main mechanism how Garcinia Cambogia works. The second mechanism that has been proposed by some people is that it's supposed to decrease the uptake of carbohydrate in the liver. Now, I haven't researched the studies behind this idea, but that was what my doctor was telling me at the time, and that was some of the things I was seeing. First of all, I don't think it's a good idea to take any supplement at all for weight loss. Second of all, you don't want to lose weight on a scale. You want to lose body fat and increase lean mass. If your goal is health, then stop looking at the scale and start to work on losing body fat through nutrition and exercise, and gaining muscle through nutrition and exercise. Garcinia Cambogia, maybe if you're obese and you have a binge eating problem, then sure. But for weight loss, for people who don't have like an addiction to food or something, and who are able to just cultivate a proper mindset about eating, seeing food as medicine is a good idea. Seeing food as functional fuel. That's the way I see it. Like, I have no temptations when I walk through the bakery store. Mark my words on that one. So yeah, I don't think anyone should be taking any weight loss supplements, especially not one that influences serotonin the way Garcinia Cambogia does, because then you're going to set yourself up for other effects, like effects on your mood and your sleep. and things like that. And also, you don't want to suppress appetite. You want to have a strong appetite, but eat healthy foods that give you the vitamins, minerals your body needs. Orthorexia is a very evil thing and disguises itself in many different forms. Andrew Todd asked, Wolfgang, how do you grow a thick beard? Well, I do believe that this is mostly genetics, but my younger brother actually used to only grow patchy parts of his beard. And when he started to eat a ketogenic diet, his beard started growing thicker. And so I think that nutrition plays a role. I think getting adequate protein and fats is probably ideal. Beyond that, I don't use any like beard supplements or beard what'd you say, like hygiene products, shampoos and crap like that. I generally will use, what I like to use is a good seaweed soap. And since I'm bald, I don't use shampoo anymore. But when I had a girl living with me for 4 years, my ex-girlfriend, she had thick, luscious Mexican hair all the way down to her butt, because that's how I like them, right? Love Mexican women and their thick hair. And she used like seaweed shampoo and conditioner all throughout her hair. And everyone said she had the hair of a doll. But before she met me, her hair was always falling out and stuff. So I got her hooked on the good health products, and my woman was looking good in public. And all the women would always ask her about her hair. It was great. Now, as far as my beard is concerned, I use like, right now I'm using an Ayurvedic soap. I think it's called like Shavardi or something with a CH. I like coconut oil soap, as long as you get one that's made with actual coconut oil and not like the sodium coconut derivative or whatever. I don't use anything else, you know. Now, because I've been exercising, like I've been training jujitsu three sessions a day on top of one session of strength and conditioning, and I train clients and have work. So any kind of like skin blemishes are probably from the constant sweating and how hard it is to keep up with all the showers and stuff. But before that, I had perfect skin, right? Let me see here. Gamer X, I've suffered migraines from 15 and born with jaundice, and also suffer from chronic gastrointestinal problems. Okay, Gamer X, you're going to have to tell me more about your weight and stuff, your height, and are you male or female? But I think my mom told me I was actually born with jaundice as well. And the only digestive problems I have is if I eat too much hard to digest plant foods. First, let's see. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to stay up to date with all these questions. Let me see here. Jad97 says, do you do these lives often? I found this channel a long time ago and learned some interesting things from you, but it's 4 a.m., so I can't think of good questions. Yeah, I try to do these every Sunday has been the common theme, because number one, I am so busy during the week. And if I don't have work or something like that, then I'm training martial arts. I'm training jujitsu. I'm training Muay Thai. I'm in the gym. Now, Sundays, my martial arts school is closed, and I usually take Sunday as a rest day from all forms of exercise. So, but I do have like a 5-hour security job that I do in the morning, which requires walking and stuff. But yeah, so Sundays usually around 8 p.m. is when I try to do these. 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Like I live in Texas, so whatever time zone I live in, I do it at 8 p.m. usually on Sundays. But occasionally I'll do it, like usually in the evenings, you know. Occasionally I'll pop on randomly. I'm sorry, I'm trying to create a normal schedule, but I'm going to say around like 8 p.m. Central Time, Sundays is when I try to do them. 8 to 10 p.m. generally. Will be nice to prepare some questions for you. So yeah, Jad97, you know what? I'm going to start to have videos where I answer questions in my comments, and I'm just going to go down a list of questions. And I'm going to put timestamps. I'm going to try to do something like that. but always prepare me questions, and any question is good. I'll answer anything, really. Ryan A says, I can fall asleep and stay asleep, but I always wake up like after 6 hours wide awake. Are there any supplements that help you stay asleep longer? So first of all, 6 hours of sleep is generally adequate for some people. You have to understand that not everybody, look, everybody's going to need different amounts of sleep. And there are, contrary to what you'll hear, there are no facts surrounding sleep schedules or sleep patterns. There are people that follow polyphasic sleep patterns, which means they sleep in 2 large chunks. They might sleep 4 hours at night and then 4 hours in the evening or something, or in the afternoon. There are people who only need 6 hours sleep. When I first started the carnivore diet and I was taking a lot of ketogenic MCTs, like the C8 brain octane oil is the most ketogenic of all, I noticed I would generally wake up energized, full of energy, not needing any more sleep after like 5 hours. And I would go straight to the gym. I would have so much energy. I was creating videos as soon as I'd wake up. I drink my bulletproof coffee, go straight to the gym on 5 hours of sleep, and I'd be fine. I might take a nap later. So you might not need that much more sleep. If you can't go back to sleep, the thing is, you're going to feel sleepy if you force yourself to sleep more than you need. And I found that to be very true for myself. Right now I'm running on, 5 hours of sleep because I had to wake up super early this morning, and I haven't taken a nap, but I was very tired today. A lot of that has to do with, were you woken up by an alarm or did you wake up naturally? If you wake up naturally, you can't go back to sleep, you might want to look into getting the fuck up out of bed and maximizing your wakefulness, right? But if you're someone who sleeps for 3 hours and then wakes up, that is different. And that could be blood sugar problems, which a strict ketogenic protocol of some kind could definitely help. Some people are deficient in sodium, and that might make them pee all night, for example, which could also be a sign of diabetes. Sodium also helps. I know for me, when I'm deficient in salt, I have insomnia. And I think that's one reason why low carb regulated my sleep schedules, because I have to be on point with my sodium. And so if I start to skimp on my salt, then I generally have trouble sleeping, I've noticed. But, there's things like, ashwagandha is really powerful if you take the proper extract. Reishi mushroom powder. If you combine reishi and ashwagandha before bed, I found that to be one of the most powerful things ever. I've actually had good experiences with a combination of GABA, vitamin B6, and glycine. And if you add some theanine into there, that could possibly really improve your sleep as well. But I've had mixed results, and I don't know if it's quality of supplements or what. So let's see. Firstly, Free says, isn't melatonin good for your brain? Isn't it a natural chemical in your brain? Yes, it is a natural chemical in your brain. But water is good for you. Magnesium is good for you. Potassium is good for you, but only if you eat it in proper amounts that your body needs. At too much doses, potassium can be harmful. Water can be harmful. Magnesium can be harmful. So taking melatonin as a supplement is not necessary, especially for brain health. What is necessary for brain health is getting the right amount of healthy sleep for you. So, producing melatonin naturally by using a sleep mask is what you need to be doing. And using melatonin for 3 days to regulate your sleep schedule, but making sure you have good sleep hygiene is what I would recommend instead. Let's see. Gamer X says, you're a male, 5 foot 6 inches. You wake up with fatigue. Okay, so my general recommendations for nutrition would be try to get about, if you're a man, 1 to 2 pounds of red meat per day, 2 pounds is going to be better generally. Ideally, my main recommendation is 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight of protein from red meat. After that, you can eat fruits and whatever else you want to reach your nutrient needs and your caloric intake needs. And if you're 5'6" and you're only like 35 kilos, if I'm not mistaken, that is relatively lean as hell. So, and it sounds to me like you might be experiencing undernourishment. So what I would say is probably eat, go ahead and allow yourself like jasmine rice, not fortified white rice, but jasmine rice. Allow yourself bananas, allow yourself some of those easier to slam down calories. I would recommend against white sugar, even though white rice damn near the same thing. Yeah, it sounds like you need more calories, and you're going to have to train your appetite in order to get those calories. But again, that's going to require an individualized, context-dependent protocol. There could be many things that can be causing that. Let's see, Jad97. Yeah, doctors really upset me the way they give out medicines for anxiety without trying to tackle the individual's triggers. My girlfriend suffered for years, but once I got her eating better, exercising, and feeling better in herself, as well as understanding her feelings, she slowly felt no need for prescribed medications. They have their place. Yeah, I mean, I was on massive doses of antipsychotics from age like 9 all the way until 21. And, I'm like, how old am I now? 29, I think. I lost track. So I've been free of medications for 8 years now. And, doctors, they thought, man, I've told my story before on live stream, that they thought that I was never going to be able to talk to people like I am now, live on my own like I am now, let alone have a girlfriend like I had for like 4 years, or maintain, a regular work schedule and stuff like that, because they thought that I had severe bipolar disorder and all this back when I was younger. And I was in and out of mental hospitals and stuff, until I was like 13, really. Once I turned 13, I went back to a regular school and I was socializing. I started to see the way the world works, and I was better then, in my opinion, but I was still taking the meds because doctors scared my mom and I was taking massive doses of Seroquel. I was taking about 2,000 milligrams of Seroquel a day total, in split doses. So that stuff's bad, but I'll tell you what worked the most for me is navigating philosophy and mindset is very hard, because I was like, well, what's the right way to view the world? What is the meaning of life? What is the right way to approach that? And I didn't want to think wrong. Like I didn't know what the right way to think about the world was. And when I started to learn that your thoughts are mostly created by your influences over your life rather than, and I realized I have the power to create my own thoughts and to think the way I want to think, then I was like, well, shit, how the fuck am I supposed to think then? And that drove me down a crazy rabbit hole where I was asking all these different teachers. Like I went to Shaolin Kung Fu for like 4 years and was asking my, because he was almost a monk. He was a disciple really of the Shaolin Temple. And there were no answers, but getting my mindset and my nutrition on check was very key. Let's see here. Regarding questions for the live, just realize you're gonna read this in a bit and it won't make sense. I'm drinking GamerX. I'm drinking unfiltered water from a month. And I think it slightly helps. Unfiltered water, yeah, I mean, drinking spring water is good in general. Let me see here. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to catch back up. Oh, it looks like I'm getting there. Yeah, you have to read. So, okay. Jad97 asks, do you have any good recommendations for books on herbs and how to properly utilize them, similar to understanding nutrition? I understand you have to take everything you read with a pinch of salt and compare information to other respects about sources, but it would be nice to know a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I learned a lot. So, okay, book recommendations are hard. I have a ton of books on herbs. So for general information, you can get, the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine and things like that. I have one right here, in fact, that's just sitting on my desk. It's literally called the Practical Encyclopedia of Natural Healing. It's probably like reverse on the screen, but I have a encyclopedia of natural remedies right here, like literally. And I have a ton of these same types of books in my closet. Most of these remedies that they recommend are things for like headaches and nausea and diarrhea and constipation and maybe some anxiety and stuff like that and tiredness and yada yada. And those are good for general information. But for me, I don't have an interest in those types of general problems to be solved with herbs. If I'm nauseous, it's probably something I ate. Now, typically, I have remedies already, like apple cider vinegar, yada yada. But most of the things people take herbs for, like headaches and nausea, diarrhea, you don't need herbs for them. You need to change your diet. But yeah, I mean, there's encyclopedias of herbalism, and you can get those if you really just want to know what all these herbs do, or the basic functions of them. But what I like to do is I've looked at, one of my favorites was Hyperion Herbs, Brandon Gilbert. He used to put out a lot of really good information. These days, I think he lost his interest for YouTube for the last, like since 2014, really. He hasn't been putting out the same quality of information that he used to, but he does have some of the best herbs on the market. I like a lot of different videos from people like him, and he's not very scientific, but I like reading people's experiences. So like, for example, if I have a problem, like if I have, let's say you have anxiety, you search Reddit for herbs, like anxiety cure herbs, Reddit on Google. And you'll find a bunch of people talking about what they think cured their anxiety. And I think a lot of that is a good starting point for research. Looking at people's experiences on what helped them, and then searching for some of the science behind it and maybe the possible side effects and stuff. It's kind of hard when you don't understand how, you don't have a basic level understanding of a lot of this, but yeah, as far as herbs are concerned, you don't really have a lot of textbooks on herbs. I think Dr. Andrew Weil has a lot of good articles on herbs. I'm sure there's so like supplements, especially for like mental health problems. I like the Ultramind Solution by Dr. Mark Hyman. He actually has and a lot of his nutrition advice from that time was based on outdated research because the book was from like 2003. But it talks a lot about the pharmaceutical industry and how, mental illness happens and why drugs are not the answer and how to find the root cause. And it has questionnaires. You can search right now. He has a lot of the information available for free in PDF format. It's called the Ultramind Companion or Ultramind Solution Companion. And it has a whole questionnaire where it quizzes you on the symptoms that you're experiencing. And whatever symptoms you experience, you can do a check mark on how many of those symptoms you have. And then based on that, it'll tell you what neurotransmitters you might be deficient in, and then what nutrition and supplements you might want to take to help remedy that. So that's good, but it's not really on herbs. It's about amino acids and minerals and stress and nutritional factors and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's, books on Chinese medicine. Like I'm a really big fan of ginseng and Chinese tonics. And I think as far as herbalism is concerned, I think it helps if you understand herbs from the Chinese medicine perspective, like, yin jing tonics, heart fire chi tonics and stuff like that. Because it is a more simplified way of describing the effects of different herbs. Because herbs they have different energies to them. If we're talking about like tonic herbs and stuff like that, they have different energies to them. And generally people will take things like bacopa, ginkgo biloba, ginseng, holy basil, ashwagandha, rhodiola. A lot of times people take these herbs not for like a specific health condition, but because they want to improve their basic level of health. And so on that level, you're not going to be able to read like an encyclopedia of herbalism and find an answer. But for like basic remedies for a lot of health problems, there's the green pharmacy is one that I have that is highly regarded. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll make a video, guys. I'll make a video where I recommend my top nutrition books, my top herb books, and stuff like that. And I'll make videos where I talk about how I, do my own research. Let's see. Firstly Free says, what if you were deficient in melatonin in your pineal gland like people with autism? I did some research on autism and pineal gland and found a lot of studies and research on pineal gland deficiency. Okay, so first of all, the pineal gland is an organ, and you can't have a deficiency in an organ. Maybe you were born without a pineal gland, if that's what you mean. So I don't really know what research on pineal gland deficiency you're talking about. Firstly Free, link me the study that you're talking about. Now, if you meant to say a melatonin deficiency, well, guess how melatonin's made. Okay, so first you eat protein. Okay, you eat, for example, you can eat red meat, right? So let's say you eat red meat. Red meat contains tryptophan, an amino acid that is it's the main building block to create serotonin, and then it can create melatonin. In order for tryptophan from protein to create melatonin, which is way later down the chain, it needs cofactors that are involved in every step of the way up to melatonin. And so that's one of the reasons why I usually recommend red meat as a protein source, because it contains all of these vitamin and mineral cofactors that are involved, including some that might not even have been identified, like carnosine and carnitine and creatine. Anyway, in regards to melatonin, if I remember correctly, you're going to need vitamin C, you're going to need magnesium, you're going to need vitamin B6, I think possibly B1 and niacin, and you're going to also have to create melatonin, it depends on the sunlight during the day, but there's a large nutritional factor involved in creating melatonin. And how exactly do they measure the melatonin in these autism patients? Do they dissect their brain and then measure the concentrations of melatonin? You're going to have to send me the study on that one. But look, Firstly Free, you're asking me about melatonin, and it sounds like the context you were asking me about has to do mostly with general usage. So like, look, if you have a deficiency in melatonin and somehow they actually have proven that through clinical testing, then yeah, sure, try a melatonin supplement. But listen, if you have a melatonin deficiency, melatonin's main function is to regulate your habitual sleep cycle. So taking excessive amounts of melatonin, amounts that are not physiologically normal, at irregular times is not healthy. So still taking it at regular times consistently, even if you have some kind of clinical deficiency, which again, I'd love to see an intervention trial that measures any neurotransmitter at all in the brain of a living person. How the hell did they do that? Please show me the study that said that. But yeah, this is getting that whole melatonin conversation is getting far-fetched. So I need to see a study to understand the context. Maybe I'll make a video about it if it's relevant, but I don't know. Joseph Reyes says, I used to be on meds, anti-depression, anxiety for years, but they all made me feel worse, so I stopped. Yeah, I mean, me too. I felt like a damn zombie. Is it me or Yerba Mate that helped cured me? It even helped with my stomach issues. Yerba Mate actually does have stomach and digestion regulating properties. It's actually a herb that they use traditionally for indigestion. I eat a lot of like fatty animal protein, obviously, right? And even when I used to, and I never had a problem digesting it, but even when I used to go to like buffets, for example, and sometimes like I went to Olive Garden in February with my mom, and I usually don't go to places like Olive Garden because of all the beans and all the anti-nutrients I'll be consuming. But if I do, I'll go to town, I'll order the big unlimited soup and salad, and I'll eat a ton of beans from the soup and whatnot, and I'll eat the salad. And I'll bring yerba mate and tea bags with me. Sometimes I'll bring loose leaf in a little bag, and I'll bring my little like filter straw. Yerba mate always makes me feel euphoric after meals, especially with hard to digest foods. So I have to say yerba mate definitely helps with digestion. And as far as like depression and anxiety, like I made a video that I think it's titled, What is the Best Herb for Depression and Anxiety? And I was talking about yerba mate in the video. So if you drink it properly and you don't nocebo yourself into thinking you're going to get jitters from caffeine, yerba mate is great. Jad97 says, have you ever looked into Ayurveda? Absolutely, I have. I feel like the idea of preventing illness is a good motivation to consume the correct stuff. Yeah, so first of all, yeah, I have studied Ayurveda. And I studied Pitta, Veda, and whatever the other body constitution is in Ayurvedic medicine. I studied all of that along with Chinese medicine extensively in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And I have some, actually, this book actually has some stuff from Ayurveda in it. Yeah, so I have studied that. I'm a really huge fan of the idea of building health rather than eradicating illness. And I always have been. And I think the idea of building health is important, but I also think that there's a lot of debate and confusion in regards to what actually builds health. But one of the key aspects that I liked about Chinese medicine, for example, is the fact that they talk about building health through building Jing and using tonic herbs, right? Like ginseng. I'm a huge fan of that because number one, I see a huge problem in the world around me is that everybody's weak and they're afraid of exactly the things in life that will actually make them stronger. And that could be talking to women or reaching out to friends you want to hang out with. That could be talking to strangers in public instead of looking on your phone. Most people, they want to avoid discomfort. Instead of talking to people at the checkout line at the grocery store, they're scrolling mindlessly through their cell phones. But anyway, like the idea of building health is complete opposite to the way 95% of Americans live their life, or most people in the modern world, even in China. And so, and I did Shaolin Kung Fu, which included, and I don't do that anymore. I practice some things, but I actually do full contact martial arts now, like Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. But when I did do Shaolin, we had Qigong, Tai Chi, and Nigong. And these are basically like slow exercises that are supposed to cultivate your energy and your health. And so I'm a huge fan of that. Now, as far as Ayurveda is concerned, look, if you're going to learn a system of medicine, I highly recommend learning Western scientific method. Because number one, like if you have a food intolerance, for example, Ayurveda and Chinese medicine is not going to help you identify that food intolerance. But I'll tell you what is, looking at people's experiences that have had, autoimmune conditions or, the same digestive issues you might be having, and then looking at the science behind why that might be the case. So you get a lot more, like, I don't like fantasyland ideas of health or any kind of aspect of anything that could lead to magical thinking. And there are some things that I think, some magical thinking things like the law of attraction that I think are important. But anyway, all I'm saying is I think Ayurveda is cool, and I think understanding how it works is cool. I think learning some of Ayurvedic tonics and things like ashwagandha, gotu-kola, bacopa, I think those things are good. But I don't think it's a good idea to spend too much time learning Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese medicine outside of some of their basic, principles. And Chinese medicine has a lot of very good principles like yin yang, jing, qi, and shen, and hot, cold. Now I have a friend actually who's a Chinese medicine doctor. He actually has a graduate's degree in Chinese medicine, and he's actually currently he's in the army right now, but he's going to be becoming a doctor of he's going to be an osteopathic physician, which is basically a medical doctor that has to go through like an extra 10,000 hours of training. So I know a lot about Chinese medicine from him and all the books he's given me and all the research I've done. Let's see. Okay. Is caffeine bad for sex drive? I'd say caffeine is probably good for sex drive, especially if you're sleep deprived. But it's context dependent. So let's see. Let me get back to where I was on these questions. Wow, lots of good questions, you guys. Okay. SN asks, have you ever considered bodybuilding? I mean, bodybuilding, I don't see the point in bodybuilding. So first of all, I have a decent amount of muscle mass. Like, I don't think these videos do me justice, like, at all. But if you look at my Instagram, Wolfgang Lozana, that's my Instagram, at Wolfgang Lozana. You'll see some of the pictures of me where I'm flexing shirtless and everything. And like, I got lots of muscle mass. I'm about 12% body fat last time I did a scan. And also I'm extremely strong. I don't give a shit about building muscle, to be honest with you. I can help other people. Like, I'm a fitness trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. And a lot of my clients, their main goal is to lose body fat and gain muscle. So I care about other people's goals of building muscle. But for me personally, I don't see any point in aiming to build muscle, like for bodybuilding. For health, sure. For health, it's more important to become strong and athletic and flexible and building a strong, healthy body. And when you build a strong, healthy, athletic body, you will build muscle as a side effect. Bodybuilding is a discipline on its own where the main priority is to build as much muscle mass as possible. I don't have any interest in bodybuilding at all. Zero. Absolutely zero interest in bodybuilding. But I participate in a periodized, scientifically constructed training program that I wrote myself that involves periods of hypertrophy training. Hypertrophy is building muscle. But I don't do it because I want to look muscular. I do it because it's a vitally important part of my strength and conditioning program. So I don't like bodybuilding, to answer that question. And I've had friends that are IFBB. What the hell? I've had friends that are IFBB pro bodybuilders that got their pro card, and it just doesn't interest me, you know? Let's see. Zohiba. I like that name. Zohiba. What do you think of stevia? Is it true that it's good for your health and might be many times sweeter than sugar? I have stevia extract. So in regards to health outcomes, you guys, first of all, I personally believe anything is going to be better than white sugar. Second of all, and there are possible negatives in regards to all sweeteners in general. Stevia, if you eat the whole plant, it has traditional uses as a medicine, but it's not going to be as sweet as if you eat like an extract. So, I mean, look, eat your stevia if you want something sweet because it's better than sugar. But I think the healthiest way to go about that is to just not eat any sweeteners at all. I do use stevia sometimes in my bulletproof tea in the morning. but sweeteners of all kinds are going to cause craving for sweets, just so you guys know that. Not that's bad or good or anything. Let's see, Gamer X. Thanks a lot for the recommendation. Sir Wolfgang, I will try to increase my diet even further and would share my progress maybe in the next session. Yes, Gamer X. I mean, well, you're going to have to message me on Instagram and maybe let me know more specifics. Remember, guys, I offer health consultations, and I only ask for a $20 donation per hour for my time. And I'm very dedicated to helping people figure out their chronic health problems. It's just that, or, whatever situations they're dealing with, it's just very hard to help people when I don't have when I have so many questions. You have to ask the right questions to get to the root cause and then go from there. You can't just have some general information on the problem someone's dealing with and then make recommendations. Jad97 says, wow, bro, that would be great. I'd love a video on those kinds of recommendations. Jad97 says, oh, talking about serotonin and melatonin, I saw a really cool talk with a guy named Mantek Chia. Let's see. When sleeping to create one of them, convert to the other. Yeah, I mean, darkness does help convert serotonin into melatonin. Helmet of Salvation asks, does the Bible have guidance on how many times? I don't know. I don't give a crap. Jad97 says, he went on to speak about some practices where once a person reached very healthy mind and body, they would actually spend prolonged time in darkness. Yeah, that's starting to sound like, this doesn't really sound like something that anyone needs to do, should do. Let's see, Jad97 says, spiritual thing, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's starting to look like there's less good questions now. I'm sorry, you guys, I spend so much time on certain questions that I get way, way behind. Sweet Pea says, is caffeine bad for sex drive? Yeah, I don't think caffeine's bad for sex drive. As long as you get enough sleep and, you're eating enough calories and whatnot, and you're not taking like a mega dose of caffeine. I think yohimbe bark extract is better for sex drive, but it'll also make your heart explode. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions that I have missed, post them down below, because I have definitely skipped through a lot. Earlier on, Andrew Todd had said anecdotes plus self-experiments plus a bit of studies is the way to go, basically. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's exactly the way that I do my research. Is for one, I have health, if I have like a health problem, which I don't have health problems these days, but if I have something I want to improve, like my energy, like if I've been feeling tired from my workouts or something, or if, I need to focus more or something, and I'm interested in some new methods of focusing, I identify what it is that I desire. I want to focus better for longer periods of time. Then I'll search on Google, focus, supplement, Reddit. And then sometimes I'll put like nootropics at the end. And I'll find a bunch of anecdotes from what's helped other people. And then I will look at the studies. And there's a lot of good evidence. So when you establish what works for most people, then you have a pretty good idea of how to interpret the science. And so then I'll look at the studies. I try to look for intervention trials, and I try to look for ones that have significant outcomes, because a lot of times it might say that they've got a good outcome, but it's like not really statistically significant. And so I'll try to find intervention trials on whatever herb, like let's say Bacopa, that I found seems to be anecdotally effective for a lot of people. And I'll look at the studies and how it works, the mechanisms, the potential risks and side effects. Then I might look at the reviews on Amazon and some of the products, which a lot of them might be fake. Then I might experiment with it if I really feel like it. And I'll buy whatever brand I believe is going to be the most effective. And then typically you'll see a video from me about that experiment. So it is, in my opinion, one of the best scientific processes that you can engage in, which would be, looking at what works for most people in the real world, then looking at the studies to see if, for one, are there studies that show effectiveness, and there doesn't have to be. I don't think there has to be studies that show something is effective if it's working for like hundreds of people anecdotally, especially on Facebook groups. Because Facebook groups, you can tell if they're real or not because they're linked to a profile where you have like a grandma who's posting statuses about her kids and shit. You know it's not a fake profile. And so those anecdotes are not the end point. Then you got to look at the science to isolate, you know, is it a supplement that's working for this person rather than other factors? And if you combine anecdotes and science, you'll be able to cut through the bullshit of a lot of things. You know, like red meat causing cancer. And then you have, you know, I have like a best friend who put cancer into remission on a like a ketogenic diet. Now, not to say that there's other cancers maybe that can't be caused. Let's see. Looking forward to your next videos. Jad97. All right, guys. I'm just trying to get some fucking hilarious trolls. Yeah, so hey, listen, you guys, I'm really happy that I have such a great subscriber base. These live streams, generally, I really enjoy these live streams, and I wanna timestamp these so that people can like watch them later on and get some good information. But I never am able to get around to it. But I'm gonna try to timestamp these later on. Yeah, I think it's time to go to bed too, Jad. I'll be making more live streams here very soon in the future. Some of these trolls are hilarious. Yeah, so I'll be doing more, usually around like 8 p.m. Central Time. Get the hell out of here, you. Oh my god, these trolls in the comments are killing me. Oh Jesus. Yeah, so the Yerba Mate, guys, is still in my system clearly because I'm so giggly. But all right, guys, I'm gonna call it a night. I'm gonna try to timestamp some of these. And listen, I hope I got to everyone's questions. You know, if you guys have any urgent questions that I haven't addressed, please put them down below. I need to, like, you know, because at the beginning there's not a lot of people, and so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just like, you know, spend a whole hour on the most interesting questions. But then as the live stream starts to go, more and more people join and ask questions, so I start to get behind. So then I have to skip a bunch of questions to answer the questions from the people that are still joining me. But let me see here. Yeah, and firstly, free. I'm gonna have to take a look at that study here in a bit. I appreciate the conversation, and I hope that I didn't get too argumentative about the melatonin thing. It's just a lot of people don't really understand melatonin, and I just want to make it very clear to a lot of people how melatonin is supposed to work. Because one thing I hate is when people say, like, you know, melatonin doesn't work, for example. Like, there's a lot of people out there that believe natural medicine is bullshit, okay? And melatonin is one of those things people hear about all the time, and then doctors recommend it. So they try melatonin, but they take it wrong. And because they took it wrong, they might experience insomnia, headaches, grogginess the next day, or it might not work for them. And then they go around bashing natural medicine as a whole, or they'll go around bashing melatonin. And so for me, I try my best to share the facts and to share the proper way of doing things, especially in regards to supplements, so that we don't have these like fools who just like, they take a supplement wrong and then they freak out and they're just like, oh, it doesn't work. It's a bunch of bullshit. I knew it, you know? Yeah, J97 says he feels like I'm doing my best to understand the intricacies of all things And that's exactly right. It's very intricate, you guys. It's a very complicated thing. You know, my answers are generally really nuanced because it's all context dependent, and there's a lot of different sides to many of these things. It's actually really cool to hear someone not completely write things off, but to try to apply them correctly. Yeah, you know, I was a vegan for an entire year, and it didn't work for me, and it does seem to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, but I'm not one of those people who like go around preaching that veganism is evil or it's horrible or it's going to kill you. I admit that there's people like John McDougall. He's almost like 90 years old, and he's been vegan. I look at that guy though, and I want to be like Jack LaLanne. I don't want to be like John McDougall. I don't think he's aging properly. So I would say you're right. All right, guys. So I'm going to call it a night. It's been 2 hours, and I know if like I have a tendency to do these live streams for like 4 hours straight and then forget the time. I'm so exhausted. I only slept like 5 hours this morning, and I had a really long and eventful day. So I'll do one of these again soon. Try to make it a regular schedule. I'll try to timestamp this video, and I'll try to make some of these videos I talked about, like the books, videos on the nutrition books, herb books, stuff like that. And yeah, add me on Instagram if you guys can, at Wolfgang Lizana, WOLFGANGLIZANA. It's basically my channel name, just on Instagram. Message me whatever videos you want me to make and remind me. So like videos on the books, yada yada. All right, guys, add me on Instagram at Wolfgang Lizana. I'm gonna take off. Have a good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Thank you, Jad. Thank you. Thank you all.